Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up from May 29th to June 4th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 4 shows, I watched 3 movies, and I listened to 2 books. Today, as I'm recording this, and as this is posted, this is the first day of the Queer Lit Readathon Round 9, so if you don't know anything about that somehow, I'll post links down below. Sometimes I like to stay up the night before until midnight so I can do a little bit of my reading just after midnight and go to sleep. Last night was not one of those cases. I haven't read anything yet and I'm a little bit scared because it's been quite a while since I've read 10 books in a week, but let's see how it goes. The first book I read this week was My Wife is Missing. This is a thriller about this family that is just really not so happy. You see, we get the perspectives of the wife and the husband, and we get their perspectives before and after she goes missing. Here's the opening scene. The family has just gotten to New York and they figure that if they order delivery food, it's going to take too long, so he has gone to go pick up some pizza and salads and is bringing them back to the hotel room. When he gets there though, his wife and his kids aren't there, and it's super weird, especially because one of his kids' teddy bear is actually in the hallway and he's like, how did this get dropped? This kid loves this teddy bear. I'm very confused. From there he goes on to try to find out like where she went and why all their luggage is missing. And then we as readers try to figure out what he did to make her leave, because clearly she left of her own accord. What I really liked about this one is you are going to feel a lot of emotions. You're going to be like, yeah, this person definitely did this thing. And then throughout the book you're going to be like, wait, was I super wrong? Was I wrong about everything? But I thought the book told me this for sure. And you're like, no, the book is very tricksy, which makes for a great mystery thriller. Because we got this before and after she went missing kind of time frame, you got to learn new things about their background every once in a while, and you got to put these pieces together. And then we also have kind of the unreliable narrator trope, because the wife has actually been experiencing insomnia, so sometimes she sees things and she's like, did I actually just see that, or was I hallucinating a little bit? And you get to try to figure out what's going on. It's a good time. The other book I read this week was We're Still Here. This is an all-trans comic anthology, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's exactly that. This had short comics from over 50 trans authors, and it was lovely. Like any anthology, there's some that hit better than other ones for me personally, but one of the things I love about it, because especially in the introduction it was talking about how there had never been an anthology like this before, and obviously there's always the cop-out of like, oh yeah, we wrote this trans character into this mainstream media thing, but like we couldn't, you know, run it by anybody who is trans and was also a comic writer, so like representation is whatever the cis people decided, and it's like, no, here's at least 50, so consult. This was a good time because you got to see a bunch of different types of art. You got to see so many different types of story. This was a good find because honestly I was at the library just kind of looking and seeing if I could find any queer comics. And I saw just the spine of this one and went, I bet this one is queer in some persuasion. I pull it out, I'm like, all trans? Perfect, I'll take you. On to the shows I watched this week. I watched the 3rd and 4th episodes of RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars All Winners because I had gotten behind because they did this weird thing last week where they put out 2 episodes. So I thought when they put out episode 2 that was going to be all we got that week, and then of course episode 3 actually hit on Friday, so I didn't watch it within that week, so I watched 3 and 4. That would be the ball episode and the fairy tale court episode. Again, I'm enjoying this format. I love that nobody goes home and we get to see just such a high level of people doing great things. There really is no weakest link, and I love that the judges are just full of positivity this season. I just really love that. Because sure, it can be fun to be snarky and, you know, tear people apart and that type of thing, but if you want that, then you watch Bussy Queen's recap, which I definitely do. Also, I follow Legion Miller and she just started a recap show, so there's that. I haven't watched it yet, but she just did a whole episode on her regular channel, which is all about being a lawyer, making that accessible and teaching people and that type of thing, about the fairy tale court episode specifically because it had to do with law, or a court of law, sort of. And she gave us a whole rundown on Judge Judy, and that was fascinating, let me tell you. This week I also watched the first 4 episodes of Inventing Anna, and this show is fascinating. Firstly, if I had known it was a Shondaland show before this week, I would have watched it a lot sooner. Secondly, the woman that plays the titular character is the same woman that plays Ruth on Ozark, and I did not recognize her immediately. She is a chameleon, and the way she talks is super weird, so apparently she had to like completely relearn how to move her face within 3 weeks of going from one show to the other, and that's also fascinating to me. This show, if you've never heard it before, is about this woman named Anna who's in jail and awaiting trial because the courts think that she stole all this money. She basically did like high-scale fraud on a bunch of different people, and it's about this journalist kind of interviewing her because she thinks it's going to be a really big story. And this is really intriguing, not only from the fact that I'm seeing a bunch of actors that I've seen in other Shondaland shows before and that I'm just like, I'm excited to see them again, but also this character is just so fun to like try to figure out and try to figure out which parts of it are lies, because you're told at the beginning of all the episodes in some really intriguing ways cinematically that this is based on a true story. It's all true except for the part that are lies. I want to know the truth, and I don't know if we're going to get just the truth. And that just makes me want to keep watching it. Because my roommates were watching it and I happened to be in the room, I also saw the first episode of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I think it's just called Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? See, this is how little I know about it, and I'm sorry, there's going to be at least one person in my comments who's a little bit offended, but this isn't my favorite franchise in the world, so I don't care. I mostly stayed in the room to watch it because I love Ewan McGregor. So as soon as I realized that it was a show starring Ewan McGregor, of course I stayed in the room to watch it. This show is set about 10 years previous to the 4th episode, which of course was the first one that came out in the 70s. So it is definitely fun to see some characters before they become big characters, and to see the very different lives that the twins live. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to continue on with this, but it was fun to see these characters again. I got to visit my best friend this week and we watched the entire first season of The Masked Singer. Now let me tell you, I am shocked that I didn't know about this show previous to like 6 months ago. Somebody told me it was a thing and I was like, wait, it's been on for seasons, how did I not hear about this show? Because it's right up my alley in the terms of just like, I love singing shows, I get the goosebumps when people are really good, all of those types of things, so I'm glad that we finally sat down and watched just the entire first season so I got to see who all of the characters were. If you've never seen it before, 12 different celebrities are in these very elaborate head-to-toe costumes and they're just singing, and somebody gets voted off every week and that person is revealed, and then you finally get to know who that celebrity is instead of just being a lion or a peacock or whatever. You're like, oh, it's been this person all along, and you get little clues along the way to try to figure it out. Now, without spoiling who was who, I actually guessed some people ahead of time. When the alien came out, before she even sang, it was like, this person is from a famous family, and I immediately said who I thought it was, and because Taryn has seen it before, she was like, yes, that's who it is. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I went through the whole show knowing that that's who that was. When it came to the peacock, now before he sang anything, based on just the clues before I heard the voice, I was like, it could be Neil Patrick Harris, and then as soon as he sang, I was like, it's definitely not Neil Patrick Harris because I know that man's voice. He has a very distinct voice. He sounds like himself when he sings, so if it was him, just no. And Taryn confirmed this because she was like, yes, of course it's not going to be him. And then we got a couple of episodes in, and there was this one clue where it's like, because of this wig, I was thrown in jail. And just seeing the wig, I was like, oh, I know exactly who this is. 100%. So I got to go through knowing who it was again, which was cool. And then of course there was Rabbit, who had to be one of 4 people, and I correctly guessed which of those 4 people he was. He was quite clearly a member of NSYNC, and I say 4 people because I didn't assume that Justin Timberlake would be on the show because I assume that guy is busy and whatever. The way I picked which NSYNC member as well was just like, oh, I've actually literally seen this person in Vegas before, and some of his clues talked about something about Vegas. I was like, I've literally seen this person before, not like in a concert or anything, like we were both at the top of the stratosphere going on a roller coaster, and I was like, why do I know what that guy looks like? I'm told the clues are much more tricky as seasons go on, so I'm looking forward to that because I'm not the biggest actual knower of celebrities, and minus the 2 sports people I had heard of or heard of the parents of everybody who was there, so that was kind of cool. I also really enjoyed learning the backstory of the person who won this season. Actually, that was the one person who was not a sports person and who was not the prodigy of famous parents that I was like, I've never heard of this person before, but I don't follow a lot of music, so that's fair. And I got to know the backstory of why that person did the show, and knowing things like that is just so much fun to me. You know what's also fun? Watching movies you know are going to be terrible and making fun of them the whole time, which is what we did with Moonfall. The premise of this movie is that the moon is falling. Its orbit is getting closer and closer to Earth, and eventually it's going to hit Earth, and obviously that's going to be a problem. As it is revealed to us, the moon is a megastructure, so it's a structure that somebody put up there, and we thought it was just, you know, this moon, this satellite around the Earth, but no, it is a structure. and you know, some astronauts basically have to save the world. I mean, it was really fun to watch because it's not like it was cheesy in the special effects or anything like that, but the plot is just so cheesy and the situation's just so cheesy, but it was well acted because it had a bunch of really well-known actors in it. It was an interesting ride. Let's just go with that. This week we watched another movie that I had never heard of previously, and that is Queen Pins. This is based on a true story where these two women basically did a huge fraud when it came to coupons. They were getting the offcuts of coupons that weren't like kind of printed exactly correctly directly from the manufacturer and then selling those to other people for a profit. This again had a stellar cast, and I love that we got to see the behind the scenes of it and see the loss prevention officer trying to get some help from the FBI so they could track down who was doing this. That was a lot of fun to me. So between the cast and some of the situations these people were in, I enjoyed it a lot. Finally, for movies, because my roommates were going to see the new one in theaters the next day, we also watched Top Gun from 1986. The biggest thing that struck me upon rewatch of this movie, because I used to watch it a lot as a child, it's one of the movies we had on VHS, it's from the year I was born. The biggest thing that struck me was Val Kilmer's character, Iceman, not actually an asshole, not actually an antagonist. He was like the good character if you think between him and Maverick, because Maverick was kind of a tool bag. So it's super interesting to me to go back and be like, wait, I am on the side of Iceman. Like, he is not a douche. He was actually really nice. Sure, there was competition. That's how these things go. There was literally a competition. I haven't seen the new one, but my roommate did say it was pretty good. They did bring back some things, kind of doing the fan service. Thankfully not that one song that they keep playing every 10 seconds at one point in the movie, which I thought it only played like once in the movie. It played a lot. But apparently the new one did also bring in Danger Zone, so she was excited about that. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being The Affair of the Mysterious Letter. This one is by Alexis Hall, and I love this author. Quite honestly, I've read, I think, 3 or 4 different things by this author, and it just astonishes me the different worlds this author is creating. I knew nothing about this one going into it, just knew that it was written by Alexis Hall. I didn't even look at the cover all too clearly, so it took me about a chapter and a half to realize that it was a Sherlock Holmes retelling, but in this completely made-up fantasy world that had so many intricacies to it, and it's being written from the perspective of the John character, who is a trans man. The Sherlock Holmes character is a sorceress, and the Irene Adler character comes to them being like, I'm about to marry this other woman, but I got this letter saying that if I don't tell her all the bad things I've ever done, then this person is going to. Can you please figure out who is trying to blackmail me? They narrow it down to a potential of 5 different people. One of them is in fact a vampire, and they go from there trying to figure it out. This was so much fun. Honestly, I can't wait to read another Alexis Hall book. I really enjoyed this one. The other book I listened to this week was The Book of Cold Cases. This is about a woman who, when she was younger, she was abducted, but she got away, and then that person went on to actually kill at least one child we know about. Because of that, she has some quirks, like she will never accept rides from people. She does not ride in cars, she just takes public transit. Thank you very much. But that's probably also the reason why she's very much into true crime. She actually runs a website called The Book of Cold Cases, where she writes about true crime things. One morning at her day job, she sees this person across the waiting room, and she's like, why does that person look familiar? And then when she hears the name, she's like, oh my god, that's the woman that everyone thought was the lady killer 40 years ago. You see, 40 years ago, there was this mystery around this woman who was leaving notes on the men that she was killing. And everyone thought it was this woman, but they didn't have enough evidence, so she was never convicted. She then goes on to try to get an interview with this woman, and then we get to kind of learn the backstory. This was a fun time because we got perspectives of both of these women. We got to see the background. There was also a paranormal aspect to it as well, which I should have guessed because I read one other book by this author and that also had a paranormal aspect, so I probably should have known that going in, but I didn't, and it was not unwelcome. This was also just a really good pick for me personally because I spend a lot of time watching true crime YouTube videos. I have 4 different women whose channels I watch so much of. And fortunately for me, they have a big backlog of videos, so I haven't run out of them yet. So even though this protagonist is fully formed, so I wasn't thinking about these women while I was watching it, I could also try to put them in the situation when I'm not in the book and be like, I wonder how Stephanie would handle this situation, or I wonder how Bailey or Eleanor or Danielle would handle handle this situation. That's it for this week. I'm looking forward to getting this done so I can actually start my reading for the Queer Lit Readathon. I am so excited. I have 10 books. Originally I didn't have audiobooks for any of them, but I downloaded Scribd for the 2-week free trial and I was able to get 2 of them as audiobooks, so I will hopefully be okay, but you'll find out next week when I do this video. Have you read, watched, or listened to any of these? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I started a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!